introduce myself just in case you don't know me. My name is Sarah Clark and I am the owner of Northern Soul, and you are a member of that gym. So there you go. I have 2 kids, which you probably, well, 3 if you include Gary, and you might be able to hear them upstairs. So I will mute myself because I'm in the cellar, and so you can hear everything, including new visitors, which are nice. So anyways, I share way too much information. So first, we've got Dan Spinks, but his name on here is Dan Outcast. So Dan, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself for us?
Yeah, hi guys. Thanks for turning up originally, and thank you, Sarah, for putting this on as well. I'm Dan Spinks. I was originally the owner of CrossFit Swansea, which was the first CrossFit affiliate in Wales and about the 7th or 8th in the country, which was back in 2007. Now owner of Outcast Strength and Fitness here in Swansea. The last few years, I've been veering more towards sort of breathing the slightly more holistic style of ability to sort of help people. So, which is why I like to share this information. So when I saw Sarah and asked if anybody wants to sort of put any info on, I kind of jumped at the chance and thought it's a perfect opportunity to share some of the stuff that I've learned over the years. So yeah, and any questions all the way through, pop them in the box. I'm not at my laptop. I'm kind of up against the wall, so I might drop in back and forth, just have a look at the questions, and hopefully we can answer any questions you've got at the end.
Muted myself. Thanks, Dan. That's awesome. So Dan will be going first, and yeah, he'll be talking about breathwork. Then we're going to go to Athalie Redwood Mills. Athalie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So hi guys, lovely to meet you all on this early morning, Saturday morning. My name is Ath. I am co-owner of CrossFit Deviant with my 3rd child also, Rob, aka my husband. I have 2 children, similar to Sarah, and I am also a university lecturer. So I'm, Dr. Orm by day and Ath by evening and by weekend. My area of research stems very much into physical activity and health, and specifically with chronic populations. So a lot of what I do is working with people who have or are at risk of things like cancer, type 2 diabetes, etc. So I'm really invested in how we as a organisation and movement with regards to CrossFit, how we are tackling and working towards trying to prevent chronic disease in all populations. So that is me. And I'll also talk a little bit about, I run a charity and a couple of organisations, Fit for Life, you'll see in the corner, which is all about trying to fund programs within CrossFit boxes and educate coaches or upskill coaches to work with these chronic populations or chronic disease populations.
Real, thank you. Kat's just said in the comments, we've seen you guys at Tribal and District L. I would actually say that CrossFit Deviant is Tribal and District L.
Oh, bless you. That's really
that's
sweet.
What we're always like, oh, you know Deviant from Tribal. And you're like, yeah.
I don't know how we get, I don't know how we basically are good at just chucking shit around on a beach. Yeah, there we go.
Teamwork. From Derby and everything.
Well, exactly. Barbados, that's where exactly. Probably one of the furthest places away from a beach, isn't it? But there we go.
There you go. Awesome. Okay, Andrew, same for yourself.
Hi there, guys. Well, my name is Andrew Mcgoughlin. I am the owner of CrossFit Australia. We're kind of a brand new box. We unfortunately had to leave our old affiliate in Glasgow due to the pandemic, but the way that we kind of grew was all the members kind of came together, like the good old story, and we set it up in the east end of Glasgow. For myself, I had skin in the game for about 12 years as a personal trainer, but then obviously decided to go into a head coach role, and now an owner myself. So now I understand how stressful it is to own one. So I do not envy you guys. And my background's based on helping athletes with their nutrition, looking at specs in their life where they're able to maximize and optimize their health markers, basically looking at the simple tasks that they can do. It doesn't need to be incredibly complicated. And normally we found out these simple methods, which we normally introduce at the beginning, which then is able to be watched over with very simple checkpoints through the week. Basically makes our guys walk around with 8-packs all the time. So we're known quite nicely around Glasgow for having the sexy people. So hopefully the information I'll be able to give you guys will give you a kick up the bum. Because obviously, if you're like me, we have been eating too many Oreos on the couch recently, and I think we're going to be coming out the back end of this pandemic very soon. So there's no better time to get ready for upping our nutrition game and getting back into the zone.
Yeah, totally great. And I think also, I don't know about you guys, but we're living in hope, and I really am hoping that, you know, it's less than a month before we're open again, and that's the perfect time to start. Like, if you know, we need a bit of motivation in all areas, and I think that's perfect motivation to start ramping up towards, you know, your new season of training. So let's hope that the stuff that we learned today we can implement. So what's going to happen is, I'm also so glad you said your own name, Andrew, because you're just going to be Andrew to me, because I can't pronounce your second name.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks all for joining. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the camera on active view so we can only see Dan. So you guys go ahead and start eating your McDonald's breakfasts. And not really, Andrew, chill out. Okay. Yeah, so hopefully everyone can just see Dan. Dan, I'm going to put a 15-minute timer on you, and I'll try and be as kind as possible when I try and cut you off, okay? Because I want to try and run this thing on time. All right then.
Very well.
Okay, let me try and work out how to do this speaker view. And then if Athalie and Andrew, if you want to mute yourselves, go ahead. All right, Dan, over to you.
Fantastic. Okay. So first of all, thank you everybody for turning up to this, and thank you, Sarah, for putting it on. This is going to be a really, really basic outline on breath control. There's a lot of information out there about breath work. Most of it is super useful and really, really good stuff. There's different variations to it all. I'd imagine most people have heard of Wim Hof. That's a very particular type of way of doing it. I've kind of learned over the last 2 years, I've been researching Patrick Mcgoughlin, the oxygen advantage, which is called a Batieco method, and also Brian McKenzie he was originally the CrossFit endurance running coach. He does his own thing called Shift Adapt, so I've done that certification, and I've just been testing, because it's all about kind of testing on yourself and see what works. So hopefully I'm just going to give you guys some information that you can take away with you and kind of play around with. I'm not just going to be talking at the board, we're going to try and make this a bit more interactive. So there's going to be 2 tasks that we're going to try and do during this. But don't be concerned that you have to get involved. If you feel like getting involved, absolutely. If not, don't worry about it. Again, it's something you can kind of try on your own. I'll also be giving Sarah some information that she can send to you after this, so that you can kind of start looking into this sort of stuff yourselves. So first of all, nose breathing is kind of what this is all about more than anything else, breathing through our nose. We are designed to breathe through our nose. That's why it's there. Our nose is for breathing. Our mouth is for conversing and for eating. There are times when we should mouth breathe, but most of the time, think of the 80-20 rule, we should really be breathing about 80% of the time. And basically what happens when we breathe, we're all used to breathing, we do it all the time, every day. But what we basically do, hopefully you can see this on the board, is we breathe in carbon dioxide, okay? We take the carbon dioxide down into our lungs, which then spreads out into the red blood cells and goes around our body, and we breathe out the waste product, what's considered the waste product, carbon dioxide. And an awful lot of people think that we need to breathe more oxygen to get more oxygen into our lungs, into our bloodstream, which will allow us to be more physical and do more things. That's not strictly true. It's not how much oxygen you breathe in, it's all about carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is the thing that forces the oxygen into the red blood cells so you can oxygenate your body and utilize the oxygen. It's how much oxygen you use, not how much you take in. So that is kind of the big take home we want to go through all this. It's not how much you breathe, it's how much you use. I'd imagine most of us here we do CrossFit, we train a lot, and how many times at the end of the session, hands and knees like that, gasping for it, trying to gasp this air in. It's what we think we should do, but ideally we should be slowing our breath down so that we're utilizing the oxygen rather than just breathing loads in and then shooting all out again with carbon dioxide. So we're going to do a few things today, which is going to show you, it might feel a bit strange. If you're not used to nose breathing, it's going to be a bit strange, but there's no right or wrong. I know a lot of us are CrossFitters and we're going to try and win or beat the system or get a PB or whatever it is, but it's not about that. It should never feel uncomfortable. This is about learning, basically relearning how we should breathe. So we're going to do something call the CO2 tolerance test. There's various tests that are out there, and this is to test what's called your ability to buffer carbon dioxide in your body. It comes from the freediving world. The reason that these guys and girls can swim to 200 meters down, hold their breath for 20 plus minutes, is their ability to buffer carbon dioxide. Because the longer you buffer that, the more it forces the oxygen in and around your body, which allows you to stay calmer for longer. It's known as the Bohr effect. I'll write that down in case. Okay, it's the Bohr, B-O-H-R, Bohr effect, okay, which was discovered about 100 plus years ago, named after the Dr. Bohr. And he discovered that the system, that's how it works, is the carbon dioxide is the useful thing which pushes the oxygen, which allows us to use it. So we're going to do something called a carbon dioxide tolerance test, and it's super, super simple. Don't feel you have to do it if you're not comfortable, but if you want to get involved, absolutely fine. What we're going to try here, if you haven't nose breathed before, you've got very blocked nose, blocked sinuses, don't worry. You can breathe through your teeth, so rather than breathing through your nose, because all we're trying to do is get our diaphragm to work properly. We're trying to fill air from the bottom. Imagine filling a cup or a cup of water. The water fills from the bottom up. That's what we're trying to do with the air. We're trying to fill in from our stomach upwards. You're not taking particularly big breaths. So if you watch the way I breathe now, we're going to do 5 breaths. On the 5th breath, we're going to try and breathe out as slowly as we can. Let the air out as slowly as you can. I'm going to hold my phone up, the timer, and you're just going to see how long it takes before you need to take another breath. And you shouldn't be struggling to take a breath. As soon as you feel you need to, and usually a sign of that is swallowing, when you feel you need to take a breath, just take a breath. I'm going to hold the timer up, and if you do it, just pop in chat how long it was. And then we'll have a little chat afterwards about what that means. Don't worry, if it's only 5 seconds, don't worry, this isn't a competition, but this is something we can improve, and if we can improve that, then our performance, our health is going to skyrocket. I've noticed this after the last 18 months. I have a background of fairly bad anxiety for about 15, 20 years, and I've been on all the drugs that the doctors could throw at me. I've been on ECGs, all that sort of stuff over the years, and the biggest impact that I've had on improving that is nasal breathing. It has been profound. My sleeping's improved, my mood's improved, my energy's improved through something as simple as purely breathing through my nose. So I'll give you an example of how we're going to do this. The first 4 breaths we do are going to be just normal, not deep, just normal breaths. On the 5th inhale, you're going to inhale as much as you can, and then you're going to let that air out as slowly as you can. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example. My breath in, breath out, breath in, breath out, 4 times. On the 5th one, breath in, and then out as slowly as possible. Okay, and I will hold my timer up. Let me make sure I can get it close enough. Okay, if I hold this up to the camera, if you guys just give me a thumbs up in the chat that you can see that, or a yes, or anything, or can't see it. Excellent. Okay, but like I said, and to reiterate as well, if at any point you feel a bit anxious, a bit panicky, then just stop. Okay, this isn't a competition. This isn't like, oh my God, how far? And if you're not comfortable doing it, absolutely fine. This is something you can try on your own. We're going to give you a few things to do at the end, which are going to be super useful. Okay, so if everybody's ready, give me a thumbs up or a yes. And I will count, I will go along with you with the breathing. I'll say breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, and then I'll tell you when we're going to take our big breath, and then we'll set off the timer. Okay? So here we go. Breath number 1. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. And now breathe in as deeply as you can. In 3, 2, 1, and let that air out slowly. That's it, just relax. You can let this out through your nose, you can let it out through your lips, through your teeth. You're just letting out as slowly as possible. And when you're done, just tap into the messages, how long it was. Excellent. Excellent, guys. Awesome work. I'm going to let it go to a minute, just in case anybody lasts that long. And if you did get to a minute or over, pop it in. This is great. We've got some really good numbers. Don't worry, Anne. There we go. Awesome work. So we got a great, excellent. So we got numbers ranging from 7 seconds up to about 40 seconds. Completely expected. So a little explanation about what that means. The better you are at buffering carbon dioxide, the higher that number is going to be. Most people, when they first do this, are between 10 and 20 seconds. 10 and 20 seconds is considered, there's nothing wrong with you, by the way, is considered in this sort of type of breathing a low score. But don't worry, because when I first did this, I was 11 seconds. 10 to 20 seconds is considered low. 20 to 40 is considered about average. 40 to 60 is considered good. 60 plus is considered the excellent. That doesn't mean that what you've got now is what you're going to have all the time. And I'm going to give you a test. You can do this test if you do this test every day. I do this when I wake up every morning. I went from 11 seconds to my best was 1 minute 50. And that took about 30 days to do that. And within that 30 days, I went from being what people refer to as a chronic mouth breather to I now nose breathe all of the time without even thinking about it. I never open my mouth unless I'm eating or talking. I've been doing this now for about 18 months. My nose hasn't been blocked since. Some people will have blocked sinuses. I actually had an operation on my throat about 12 years ago. I had polyps in one side of my nose that was totally blocked. Since doing this, completely open. Some people do have deviated septums. They might have had broken nose, but the cartilage and the skin within your nose can change very quickly. So don't force yourself to do any of this. All I would say is just try and breathe through your nose as often as you can. That might be going out for a walk, taking the dog for a walk, sitting there in front of the TV. Can you do 20 nose breaths? Okay, but never force it, just do what you can. And the aim is to get to the point where you can actually sleep without your nose being open whatsoever. If any of you snore or wake up with very dry mouth, that's due to mouth breathing. So now we've done that little test, the benefits of nose breathing. I said for myself, the benefits I've seen, you can do a little bit of research on Google and you will find page after page. There's a very recent one, which again, I'll link with Sarah for the, has been released about the benefit with COVID, because when you breathe through your nose, the filters filter bacteria. It vasodilates your arteries, which allows the blood to get around your body quicker. It humidifies the air, which helps kill bacteria. There's basically, that's why our nose is there, is for us to breathe. And like I said, when you breathe through your nose, you automatically use your diaphragm. You have to. When you breathe through your mouth, you don't. You tend to breathe up in the top of the chest. Okay, so you see this chest, which leads to hyperventilation or overbreathing, as people refer to it. So you're not breathing enough oxygen and you're not breathing out enough carbon dioxide. And that can lead to things like anxiety, which is what I had for years due to that hyperventilation. And a very quick explanation about the difference between the two. Okay, this principle I got from an excellent breathing coach called Emily Hightower, Dr. Emily Hightower. I'll supply her Instagram as well. She's brilliant. She puts some fantastic information out there. She explains this where we've got our sympathetic nervous system, our parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, we live day to day in here. We have peaks and troughs, we have good days and bad days. Our sympathetic nervous system, our fight or flight response, as you say, the sort of sensation you get when you're doing a workout, when you're doing what? It's fine to dip into that now and again. Parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest, our relax, that's where we get our improvements in our muscle mass, in our sort of fitness. When we're resting, it's okay to dip into there now and again. But an awful lot of people stay here in the sympathetic. They're over their high heart rate, that sort of anxiety. Parasympathetic, if you stay here, this is the more kind of depressive place. And this is what we tend to see. Nose breathing will help you normalize and stay in the middle, dip in and out when you need to, and you can control this through breathing. You can control your state through breathing. And the aim is to expand that box through our ability to kind of stay in it. So when you dip into it now and again, it expands it a little bit. That little bit of a stressor expands it. So the aim is to push it out. If you stay here, it actually pushes it in. So you end up sticking in either the sympathetic or parasympathetic. These are completely not two normal states that we kind of think of it as a sliding curve. We go one side or we go the other, like a volume dial. And the aim is not to stay on either end. The aim is to dip in and out, and you can control it through breathing. So hopefully there's a lot of information there. I'm going to get some stuff to Sarah that she can send to you. And that if the one takeaway from this is try that CO2 tolerance test, do it every day, time it, make a little diary of it, and you will see pretty quickly how that improves. And you will also probably see little notes of sleep, etc., and see if that improves you as well. So that's it. Very simple, not too complicated. Just take that CO2 tolerance test home with you, give it a go, see how you find it. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let me make sure that you can see me. Oh, I don't know if you can see me. All right. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much, Dan. That was brilliant. I've got loads of notes and I'm looking forward to looking at the rest of the notes that you send on. So don't worry, guys, if you didn't write any notes, it's all good. You're going to get them in an email soon. Thank you so much, Dan. That was awesome. If you have any questions for Dan, he is going to stick around. So stick them in the Q&A box on your screen. And that was actually 15 minutes on the spot. So no pressure, Athalie.
I was just going to say, that's it. I'm out. I'm done. How do I follow that? Cheers, Dan. Thanks, mate.
Awesome. All right, Dan, if you want to mute yourself, and then Athalie, all over to you.
Awesome. So you've disabled host sharing screen. I think you just need to make me a co-host, if that's possible. Awesome. So folks, hopefully you can see my screen. Can I just have a thumbs up from Sarah? Can you see that screen, Sarah? Awesome, because I can see you. Firstly, thank you guys for, as I say, getting up this early. And Dan has given me a very tough act to follow, but there we go. So what I'm going to talk about today is effectively the illness, wellness, fitness continuum. And the reason that sort of Sarah brought this in, I think, is because a lot of us at the moment are probably struggling potentially with a little bit of motivation. It's tough, it's dark, it's cold. Who the heck wants to go outside and start working out at this time? Certainly not me. And this whole illness, wellness, fitness continuum, I think it really embodies what we do, and hopefully will start to give you a little bit of a motivator to get back into some sort of schedule normality with regards to your exercise regime. So what essentially is this? Well, I'm hoping that some of you might have seen this before. My toolbar has gone right across the screen, so that's very helpful. It's something that CrossFit talk about quite a lot, and it's also something that I think personally as an academic really embodies what we try and do as an organization. And that is effectively that we are trying to get as far over to the fitness side of that continuum as we possibly can. What does that look like? Well, it effectively looks like us having a BP within a normal range, blood pressure, body fat percentage within a normal range, or cholesterols, or HDL, etc. is within a normal range. We are feeling like we have sort of cardiorespiratory and pulmonary normality. We are effectively cardiovascularly fit. We just feel good, essentially. And the reason that we want to try and get as far over onto that side as possible is to try and avoid going all the way over into the illness or sickness continuum. So let me give you an example. Both myself and my husband had COVID. So we had COVID over New Year, great. And both of us literally continued to train through it, felt a bit crappy. I've had worse training DOMs, if I'm honest, not downplaying the seriousness of it at all. But essentially, we're both very fit individuals. We train, we're trained across a modality of different dimensions of fitness. So strength, power, endurance, the 10 fundamentals of CrossFit. And so when we get ill, when we have some sickness, what happens is we move further to the left of the continuum. So we essentially go into wellness. Now, for us as fit individuals, wellness means that we can still carry out activities of daily life, so ADLs. We don't have to be bedridden. We don't have to stop doing things like going to work, unfortunately. Well, COVID, obviously we did. But we stay in that wellness continuum. We stay on that level. And in some respects, to be honest, I've had worse hangovers. So we were actually, in a good place. Now, if somebody who is slightly into their fitness regime, so somebody who's, I'd class my mum, she does CrossFit. She's in her 60s, so she's not, super, super crazy fit, but she's pretty fit for her age. Now, if she got COVID, or let's take Rob's mum, because she did actually get COVID, thanks to us, what happens is she goes into past wellness and probably gets a little bit sick. So she didn't have to go to bed. She felt a bit naff, so she sat, and just sort of calmed down, relaxed, didn't go quite as crazy with everyday life. So she veered further over to the left of that continuum, but she still didn't get sick. She still didn't have to go to bed. She still didn't have to go to hospital or ICU or anything like that. Now, if somebody who is already on that verge of being sick, so for example, if somebody has some sort of chronic disease, if somebody has cancer, for example, if somebody is immunosuppressed, if they're already working towards that sickness continuum, then ultimately when they get some sort of additional disease, and let's take COVID, very pertinent, then what's going to happen is they're going to veer into that sickness. So what we are trying to do as a group, as a fitness modality, is we are trying to get as far over onto that continuum as possible. So essentially, if we do get sick, we're only going to be well, and we're not going to fall into that sickness bracket effectively. So we can still do everything that normal people would do. Now, you're probably saying to me, well, that's great, but there are some people who are fit and I wouldn't necessarily say that they were healthy. And that's completely correct. And you would be, well versed to question that. So if you might have, and I've put on the right hand side there, hopefully some of you are familiar with Eddie Hall, absolutely looking like jacked at the moment. It looks fantastic. Now, when he was competing as a strongman, he was, let's say, he had elements of fitness, incredibly strong, and there were aspects of his general characteristics as a performer that he would excel on the 10 dimensions of CrossFit's fitness skills. But he was not health protected. So he was a walking heart attack. And you saw probably from his feats of, deadlifting 500 kilos for that to have taken so much from him, for him to do, what is effectively 5 shuttle runs carrying heavy load, he got incredibly out of breath. So cardiovascularly wasn't particularly fit or wasn't fit at all. And he would open up that himself. You've then got people, so for example, I've got gymnasts almost on the opposite extreme who may have a very low BP, as in not low dangerous, as in low positive, low heart rate, and a very low body fat. But actually, are they health protected? Well, no, because there are other dimensions of that 10 CrossFit skills that they are lacking. So certain sports are ultimately going to excel in certain modalities of that list, and some are going to be lacking because of the specialism of a sport. It means that they are not necessarily fit for life, and hence the terminology we use all the time with our program, Fit for Life. Are you fit in all domains of life? Could you pick up a heavy load? Could you sprint, run for the bus? Could you create or walk or run for long periods of time? Could you bend down and are you mobile? Are you flexible? All of those different dimensions are really, really key to being fit for life. And those characteristics translate to not only being fit for life, but also health protected. Because if you are in a normal or above normal in those 10 dimensions, so if you are focusing on all 10 of those, then the chances are you are going to be health protected. So why does CrossFit facilitate this? Well, we've pretty much summed that up already, because what CrossFit does is it goes across all 10 of these different dimensions. We do elements of stamina work, we do elements of cardiovascular work. So when we talk about Metcons, for example, we do elements of strength, flexibility. I know some of you don't do your flexibility and your range of motion, and you're the first ones to avoid stretching. We do things related to agility. If you think about, pull-ups, muscle-ups, things that require quite quick changes in direction. We do all of those factors, and we are effectively working and excelling at those across a whole range of our fitness criteria. So the whole premise of CrossFit is about becoming fit for life, so that if we are to delve into anything that is thrown at us outside of the gym, we are able to cope with it. And ultimately what we're doing in the gym is we're working on these 10 dimensions within a controlled, supported and supervised environment. So Sarah will be there, Dan will be there, etc., giving us pointers on technique, on form, etc. I can see there's quite a few. Sarah, if there's any questions coming in, then absolutely happy to engage with those. I can see it, the chat flashing away. Now this is all well and good. We've got these 10 dimensions, and people often ask, well, geez, how do I fit everything in? How do I possibly work on all of these? And, if I want to get stronger, am I going to have to, forego being cardiovascularly fit, for example? And I guess that's the whole beauty of CrossFit. And what we do is we try and endeavor to, yes, we may do strength cycles within the programming on various movements. We will also do skill cycles when we may be working on a particular set of skills which may aid our agility, our balance, our coordination, etc. But fundamentally what we're trying to do is work on all 10 of those as a sort of a whole package, really. But what's super important, and this hopefully will lead on to Andrew's talk, and apologies if I steal any of your thunder, Andrew, it's not intended at all, is when we talk about being health protected, and when we talk about trying to get over onto that fitness continuum, what we're doing in the gym is only part of the puzzle. What we do out of the gym is also super important with regards to our nutrition and how we're fueling what we do in the gym. And essentially, you've probably heard the whole, scenario of you can't out-train a poor diet. If we don't get our nutrition right at the bottom of the pyramid, then ultimately what we're doing is we're not facilitating the growth and the development and the health protection in all of those aspects of fitness that we are doing within the CrossFit box. And if somebody said, going back to the question, well, what do I prioritize? What do I do first? Somebody walks into my box, the fundamental thing that I'm going to be trying to get them to do is be metabolically conditioned. And what we mean by that is by getting them a little bit fitter, by getting them cardiovascularly fit, so they have a little bit of stamina, so they're able to do things without getting out of breath, things like walking up the stairs, things like walking to the shops. And then what we start to do is we start to do things like gymnastics. What do we mean by that? Well, no, I'm not going to get somebody who's 20 stone trying to do a muscle up or a pull up. What I'm doing is I'm trying to get people to carry their own body weight. So can they work towards carrying their own body weight more efficiently? And those two together, lo and behold, what happens is a huge amount of motivation, because they start losing weight, they start being better at gymnastics or gymnastic movements. And then they're like, shit, this stuff works. This is cool. And then we can add in the stuff that's really cool, like the weightlifting, et cetera, et cetera. At the top of the pyramid, not going to dwell on it, but we've got sports specifics. And for most of us, we're trying to work a little bit lower down. We're trying to be health protected. But ultimately, we need to make sure that we, as a group of individuals, facilitate what we're doing in the box. Work on your nutrition. Andrew, there you go. You can pay me later. So what does this mean? And ultimately, in summary, in order to get sick, we need to pass through well. If we're fit, we will get to well. And we have to be pretty damn sick to get ill if we're on the right side of that continuum, on the fitness side of the continuum. We ultimately have to make sure that we fuel ourselves. So we need to try and be as good with our nutrition, not saying that you have to count every macro, but we want to fuel ourselves appropriately. And I'm sure Andrew's going to give you some tips and tricks to do that. When we start, so going back to the gym now, what do we start on? Well, we just start on making sure our fitness is there. And I'm sure those of you that have been doing bits and pieces have been working on this, but ultimately we work on our fitness. And you know what's great about that is it doesn't take anywhere near as long to get back your cardiovascular fitness as it does to build strength. So we can get and we can start to feel a little bit fitter quite quickly. Not going to lie, those first few sessions might be a challenge, but we will start to feel fitter quicker. In terms of the fitness continuum, the further we start on that right-hand side, the longer it's going to take us to get ill. And you cannot out-train a poor diet. So as I say, Andrew will talk to you very much about how you can facilitate that. So in summary, just to kind of give you a little bit of an insight into how this fits into the work I do, we predominantly work on upskilling coaches to help them gain knowledge and confidence to work with individuals who are at risk of chronic diseases. So we have a charity, and our aim is to get a Fit for Life coach into every box within the UK by in 5 years. We want to try and ensure that every box has the opportunity to effectively work with individuals who are at risk of chronic disease or have had treatments for cancer, etc., or might want to get fit for surgery, cancer, etc. We fund this, so we are now a registered charity. We fund this mostly through the sale of our clothing, which you can see there. But if anybody is interested in learning more, we're doing quite a lot of online stuff at the moment for mostly people's mums, aunties, friends who are just a bit, can't get to the gym, or they've not done anything and they've suddenly realized that they're on the left side of that continuum. And I think COVID for a lot of people has really highlighted just how important it is to be on that right side. And for us as CrossFitters, we're very lucky that we have the support and we found that group that can motivate us to be on that right side. But there are a lot of people out there who have barriers, don't have the same opportunities, and ultimately are struggling. And that's effectively what we're there for. We're there to hopefully create fill that gap to help people who are keen to move more to that right side of the continuum. I can see the chat going crazy. So if people do have questions, absolutely happy to take those. And yeah, that's it from me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. If you could just stop sharing your screen for me, that would be awesome. Yeah, absolutely amazing. So people in the chat are basically just kind of loving the information. Some of them are saying, what is stretching? What is flexibility? But that's just our weird humor. You know, so yeah, absolutely incredible. And it is like Dave says, it is like foundational you know, information that we should really definitely know. But putting it as simple as that means that we can now go and tell our families and our friends, you know, that we don't just do this thing because it's a cult, you know, we do it because it works and it's like a foundation of life. So that's so awesome. So if any of you do have any questions for Ath, just pop them in the Q&A box below, and she'll be able to answer them at the end if anything pops into your mind. So far we've got one for Dan, so don't feel like you're going to be the only person asking a question. Georgina has already taken the plunge and put herself out there. So yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. And I will definitely share a picture of my Fit for Life shorts and bra if anyone wants to see what they look like on a real person. Awesome. Okay, so Andrew, we're going to head over to you now, and yeah, so unmute yourself. Yeah, so
yeah, I'm all good.
Andrew.
I really enjoyed both of your chats, honestly. I think this is going to kind of come full circle for everybody, so I hope you're ready for information to come flying at you from all different angles. So please don't freak out with the information that I'm going to come at you, because it seems like everyone who's having a conversation right now about health and well-being, it's all interlinked together. And when I was reading everyone's conversations, it quite frankly is. If you move better, breathe better, sleep better, eat better, you're going to look sexy and awesome. That's the whole kind of point. But it feels like everyone already knows these are the main factors that everyone needs to have in able to live a super healthy, awesome lifestyle. So why can't people actually adopt these systems? And I feel sometimes it comes into not being able to have habits in place to be able to stay consistent with this. And that's something that I can kind of teach you guys alongside with the nutrition stuff. And this can also be implemented with the breath work, and it also can be implemented with your weekly checkpoints of, am I actually doing everything properly? Am I being able to see any type of personal growth with my my training and my goals in general, such as, is it weight loss? Is it fat loss? Is it performance output? Am I able to get better sleep? And kind of like what Dan said, is like, we tend to see people who come into the box, they have this kind of background of having anxiety or depression, or they're not happy with their life, or they've came out of a bad breakup and they need to make themselves feel better. So when we normally teach anyone at an on-ramp or like a fundamentals course, we normally tell them, right, this is our hierarchy of importance. Right at the very basis of it is nutrition. This is the thing that is going to give you the powder in your dynamite stick. When you come in and you do a WOD, we are the spark. That's the thing that's going to make you explode and be able to perform as well as what you want to, regardless of whether or not you're trying to use CrossFit as a supplementation towards a sport, or if you're just using CrossFit as your ways of just getting in your 1 hour of being awesome. So when we normally sit and talk to people about nutrition, everyone understands that they should avoid the sugary foods, they should get away from the empty calories, and that they should try and get their food sources from organic, free range, non-processed food sources. But why do we normally tend to see people struggle with not being able to lose maybe that last little bit of body fat around the body? This is where we need to then start to strip everything down and be able to check and see, are we actually intaking calories which we're not actually picking up? Is there maybe a couple of extra 100 to 300 calories a day that we're not tracking, and that's what's giving us the issue? So what I'll try and teach you guys today is like the core fundamentals that we teach our guys at Australia to make sure that they can dial in properly, and then they're able to reinforce some healthy habitual habits, or what we call positive habits, on top of one another. You might have read this from a book which we call the Atomic Habits. That's basically the general rule of thumb. They say, make a good habit on top of another habit, plain and simple. One of the ones that we did beforehand was with a couple of guys who were trying to get in some extra supplements because obviously COVID was going around. They were freaking out. They were saying, I need to get more nutrients into my body. I'll take some more multivitamins, but I keep forgetting them. So I say, right, well, what do you do first thing in the morning? Do you brush your teeth? Do you make a cup? I hope you brush your teeth. Or do you make a cup of tea or something? And most of the guys was like saying, yeah, I do. I get up in the morning, go for a piss, and then I'll ping the kettle on. I'm like, right, great. See your supplementations. Put them next to your toothbrush or put them right next to your cup of tea. And it means that that's reinforcing the fact that you can visibly see it and you're going to have it. So that's one of the things that we were saying to them about using healthy habits as a supplementation. But now if we take that from a food point of view, what we try to do is the following. The day before, so this can literally, say this is Sunday, you've got a journal in front of you and you're going to write down all the things that you're looking to try and accomplish, whether or not that be like 10 pounds of body weight loss, or you're looking to try and dial in your food so you're able to pick up these simple organic foods and you're able to intake the right amount of water. Right, you've got that written down. Now that we've got this in place, what we're checking to see is how much calories are you actually meant to be intaking. Now, I know that sometimes we should say not to calorie count, but we need to have some sort of guideline. We need to make sure that we're not over consuming or we're under consuming, because to be honest with you, ladies and gents, the majority of us actually don't eat enough for the amount of training that we normally tend to do. Because when we start to remove the bad foods out of our diet and we take away the empty calories, we actually see that we're in a calorie deficit. So if we're looking to actually put on some lean muscle tissue, it's important for us to be able to get the good sources of calories to ramp up to the level that we're requiring for the intensity of training that we're doing. So what I'll do today is there's a simple equation which you can use to find out how much calories that you should intake. And we normally call this the Harris-Benedict equation. Really straightforward one that you can do in your own time. But once you've got a BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate, you're then able to use another system called your PAL, or your physical activity level. Now you need to be honest with yourselves. Normally we use this from a 1.2 as you being super sedentary. You basically sit on your ass, you're not doing anything all day, which technically we have actually been doing nearly for the past year. We've not been as active as what we normally tend to be because we've been self-isolating. That would be 1.2. For an athlete, it's 2.0. And I'm talking these guys are training 8 hours a day, 6 times a week. But that's basically what my wife used to do. She was an ex-Team GB gymnast. So when I seen the gymnast picture popped up, I went, yep, that's her, ripped, diced, and he still told us she was fat. So you were kind of like, this is crazy. She needed to intake a considerable amount of calories to be able to sustain her level of training. So we need to be honest with ourselves of where we are sitting on that scale. So for any of the athletes that we normally train with, we normally tend to see that we would sit them roughly between the 1.4 to 1.6 range, mainly because it might be some firefighters or accountants, but they normally train 3 to 5 times a week. We normally use that as an area as a general rule of thumb. For me, my calorie intake's roughly around about 3,000 to 3,200, subject to how many times I'm on the bike, because I'm training for a Gran Fondo. So I'm cycling about 120 kilometers every ride. So I need to make sure that my carbohydrate levels are substantially higher than normally what I do when I'm not training. The reason being why is carbohydrates are the fuel source for you to perform, okay? That's the main reason why we try to explain to people, carbs are the good guys, but you need to make sure that the carbohydrate source that you're getting them from are not from sugary drinks or getting yourself from Haribo's or intaking some Gatorade, just basically to try and get those carbohydrates quickly. I call that poor nutrition performance. You're not actually planning your meals around about your training systems. So sometimes what I want you guys to think about when you're journaling, what time of the day are you actually going to train? Are you a morning CrossFitter? Are you an afternoon, or are you an evening CrossFitter? For me, I normally like to train in the afternoon because the guys will probably explain or understand we coach from 6 o'clock onwards. Like, so we're up at 6 a.m. in the morning. Normally I'll intake like a high level of a protein source. Like I'll get my scrambled eggs first thing in the morning with my side vegetables. And then I will have my black coffee, coach all the way through. And then roughly about 10 o'clock, which is 2 hours before I start my training at 12, I start to intake some complex carbohydrates. Complex carbs, they're not really hard to understand. These are the carbohydrates which are slow releasing, and you normally tend to get these from starchy carbs. So normally your sweet potato sauces are normally the go-to ones and the most enjoyable ones. And then after you've finished your training, you need to replenish those carbohydrates quickly. So what we call is then they're the quick releasing carbohydrates. So it's like getting your banana straight after your training session to ramp up the carb levels, because that enables us to transport the nutrients properly into the muscle cells, which means that you're able to get that recovery as quick as possible. So normally what you should do is try to get your carbohydrates roughly around about the training window. Try not to eat them too later in the evening, because to be honest with you, you're not actually going to be needing them as much. So normally trying to get the bulk amount of your carbohydrates roughly around about your training window will allow your body to utilize that energy system specifically for training. So you've got two other ones that you have, which is your proteins, and then you've obviously got your healthy fats. The healthy fats are the things that are going to make you sexy. That's the thing, because they're the things that help promote some good hormonal releases. And they're also really good for your central nervous system and the protections of your joints. Protein, we all know what that does. That basically bulks up our muscle tissue, all right? And it replenishes cells to be regenerated. So when some people tell me, oh, how much protein should I be eating a day? To be quite frank with you, still try to stick to your macronutrient percentages. So for any type of male or female, I say roughly around about 30 to 35% of your total calories should come from proteins, and try to get a protein source within every meal. It's not too hard to do, and it doesn't necessarily matter where you get that protein source from, whether or not you're a vegan, a vegetarian, a carnivore eater, whatever the hell you want. Trying to make sure that you're just getting a protein source in every meal is as important as anything that you can do. So some people find it quite difficult to eat protein first thing in the morning, because as of kids, they were taught to eat toast or have cereal. But to be honest with you, I've got some guys eating steak first thing in the morning because that's what they do. That's what they like. And I'm not stopping them doing that. But what you're trying to figure out is trying to make sure that you're understanding how many calories that you're requiring, what times of the day that you're allowed to eat, because you can look at your schedule and say, right, these are my non-negotiable times. I'm going to make sure I'm having a meal. For me, probably 4 meals a day is suffice. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner with one snack, plain and simple. And trying to make sure that you're getting your carbohydrates roughly around about your training window. And if you're saying, well, Andy, I don't train in the afternoon, I train in the evening. I'm like, wicked. Right, morning and afternoon, you're getting your protein source and your carbohydrates, and getting your fibrous fibers from vegetables. That will get you sorted out roughly around about 2 o'clock. Then you start eating your carbs again if you're going to go to an evening WOD. But for me, a lot of people start to get a little bit confused at this stage. So this is normally why you've got these apps like MyFitnessPal or RP Strength, which normally tend to help people along with their training windows and how much grams that they should be eating roughly around about that training window. And a general rule of thumb, we normally come down with explaining to people, right, well, you've got your food intake roughly, right? Are you drinking enough water as well? So normally some people do think they are drinking enough water, but for normally around about men, we say about 2.5 liters of water a day. For females, it's normally roughly around about 1.5 to 2 liters, subject to their height and subject to the weight. But general rule of thumb, it's 2 to 2.5 liters for men, 1 to 1.5, so 1.5 to 2 liters for women. But when we train, we actually secrete quite a lot of water. So there is roughly a general rule of thumb equation which you can use, because when we say, for example, when I cycle or do like 2 hours of training in the gym, if I'm doing like a heavy training session, I'll try to I normally use my body weight in pounds, times it by 1.0 in ounces. So if I'm weighing about 220 pounds, I'll try to get 220 ounces of water after a training session to try and replenish it with an electrolyte tablet. Or you can use a little bit of Himalayan salt in there. Normally, some people don't like that because it doesn't taste nice. But if you get a little bit of salts in, it gets into the cells of the muscles a lot quicker. But normally when we tend to work with people in CrossFit, they know that they should be eating healthy, but they normally tend to fall off the bandwagon quite well, especially when it comes to the weekends. So I don't know about you guys, but normally Friday, Saturday night hits, you want a glass of wine, you want a beer, but these having alcohol, which I normally tend to see, we live in Scotland, this is pretty bad. All right, we do. We party a lot, we drink a lot. That's just our culture. So normally when we've got the guys down at Australia, I say to them going, look, how badly do you want a six pack? because this is where normally the last 5% of your body needs to be dialed in a little bit. So what we need to do is we need to try and make sure that we're being honest with ourselves and saying, right, well, you have a glass of wine every week. What happens if we decided that you had a glass of wine every second week? It's a starting point. So it means that we're reducing how much alcohol that we're intaking, and it's allowing the body an opportunity to fight back and take control of making sure that we're not letting alcohol get into the system, which is mucking up our sleep. It's mucking up our respiratory system when we're going to bed, because I use Whoop. And normally when I have like a glass of wine or a whiskey, when I go to bed, my resting heart rate variability shoots through the roof. And the amount of times that I wake up through the night jumps by at least 5 to 6 times due to the fact that I've had alcohol in my system and it's mucking with my deep sleep. So using some sort of like health monitors, like a Whoop or a Garmin or any type of app, like a Fitbit normally tends to work as well, can go to show you, is there things that you're intaking into your body causing your body grief when you're trying to recover, but is it also giving you problems when you're training as well? So it's taken me roughly around about a year using Whoop and RP strength to analyze what type of foods work well with my training and what type of meal should I have before I go to bed to enable my resting heart rate to be as low as possible. I think mine's sitting about 39 now. When I first started out, it was about 48. So your resting heart rate is basically how many times your heart beats per minute. And basically your respiratory system is how many breaths do you take per minute. So averaging, but Dan might jump in a little bit. Is it roughly around about 15.1 to 15.8 our respiratory system should be sitting at averagely for a human? Or is it subject? Yeah, give or take. So if we normally tend to see someone's respiratory system jumping up quite rapidly, it might be a sign that maybe your diet's off whack and that you're missing the mark here. So normally when you're journaling your food, and it can be boring, and I understand this is why some people who use MyFitnessPal, they're on and off the bandwagon all the time because they don't like to scan food all the time. So I normally tend to say to people, if you know how much calories that you should be intaking and you know what protein source that you should be making, I would recommend that you work with 8 to 10 meals, making sure that you know how to cook them. They're really easy to make. You can batch prep your food as well. So if you've got your vegetables, chop them all up, stick them in Tupperware, raw, so they're not cooked, shove them in the fridge. That was what I was looking for. So it means that you're not wasting time having to chop all the food up and getting it all together. You can literally go into the fridge, bash it all in a dish. It takes about 15 minutes to make. And then it means that there's no excuse for you going away and getting a takeaway, or that you end up missing a meal, because that's terrible for you guys to do as well, is missing out on an opportunity to get food in to optimize your training. And normally what we tend to say is, if you want to use some sort of markers to see if this is working for you, don't be shy of stepping on the scales, okay? Because I feel like some people are a little bit worried and nervous, and believe me, I've got some people who cry when they step on the scales. Sometimes I say to them, look, this is a measurement for me, not for you. You don't have to look at this, but normally if we measure your body weight once a week, this will allow us to check and see if you're going in the right direction, alongside using just how your clothes are feeling on your body. I know all the women, you've got a set of jeans in the cupboard, right? You know the jeans that you put on and you're like, fuck, can I still fit in them? Are they not filling on? Am I not able to get the bottom on? Bex has got them. She's like the pair of jeans that she's like, yep, still got it. 10 years, I'm still the same size. But then I'm kind of like, wicked cool. That's one way that you can measure it if you don't want to use a tape measure or skin fold calipers. But the other thing as well is like taking a picture for yourself, front and the side and the back, basically to check and see where your body fat deposits are. Are you retaining weight in the lower half of your back? Are you retaining weight around about your hips or along your gut? Because that might actually be more based on hormonal issues as well. And we can deep dive into another realm when it comes to women's hormones when they're talking about their menstrual cycle, because we had a podcast about that and it went nuts, because we were saying, look, there may be some days that you're dying to eat carbohydrates, and that's okay. It's because your body's releasing a hormone which is telling you it needs that energy. Fucking ace. Go eat your carbs. just don't go nuts, all right? And the reason being is you might come into a training session and you look at it and you go, fuck, it's intervals on an assault bike. I feel so tired today, Andy. Wicked. Tell you what, let's mix up your training a little bit. Don't aim for 15 calories, aim for 12 calories or even 9 calories. Your body's just not feeling for it today. So this is why sometimes you need to listen to your body, which I think is incredibly important. If your body's screaming out for energy, make sure that you're able to maybe journal it in your book saying 2 o'clock, I felt flat. Then you can look at your day, not on the day, but even the day before, looking at your intake going, right, what did I miss? Did I eat enough on that day, which had a knock-on effect onto my next day? Or did I eat enough carbohydrates? Like say, for example, it's Saturday. Did I eat enough carbohydrates on Friday, which meant it's had a knock-on effect onto my Saturday? You can't just look at it from a day-by-day scenario. You've got to go back by 2 days to basically check and see, am I in an optimal position to be kick-ass in this training session? So trying not to run over by 15 minutes. We normally launch a podcast on our Spotify, which is basically for free. It's for everyone. Sometimes it's incredibly informative and it looks like it's more of a lecture. But to be honest with you, the way that we do podcasts, it's more like me shooting the breeze with all the members. We've also got some people who jump online as well and do like the Zoom calls and we just record it and we're just talking nonsense. But there's tons of golden nuggets in there. One of the ones that we did with Ellie was basically talking about how she was able to look at her like strength cycle in conjunction with like when she was on her menopause, like her 4 cycles, and how she was able to adopt a relationship with her coach to say, I feel badass today. I feel like I can go for a heavy set. Wicked, do it. Some days it's like, I feel like I'm going to cry in a corner. Cool, no problem. No offense, I'm going to flip it on its head. I've even got some men who come in who are emotional states and they say to me, Andy, I'm feeling really weak today. I don't feel like I'm going to be able to do 60 kilogram thrusters. I'm like, ace, let's go with 35 or 42 and a half kilos. So it means you can still move nice and quick and you'll get the relative intensity that you're looking for. But then for me afterwards, I'll have a chat with you saying, did you eat enough today? Or did you get a good enough amount of sleep? 9 times out of 10, they turn around and go, nah, I stayed up till like 2 in the morning because I was playing COD. I'm like, cool, that's your issue, right? You need to stop playing COD and get to bed at a decent time, but make sure that you're eating well, which will allow you to naturally fall into an actual state of sleep. So this is one of the takeaways alongside the nutrition I can help you with. And if you want, you can reach out to me. I'll talk to you. To be honest with you, like Sarah will understand, I normally like working with people like on a one-to-one basis. Personally, I don't charge anything because I just like to help people. I'll just say to you, going, right, what's your issue? What are the things that you're doing on a day-by-day basis? Right. Is it nutrition? Is it sleep? Is it actually habitual? And normally 9 times out of 10, it's habitual because we've been knocked off our system so much. We don't have a routine of traveling to work, doing work, traveling to the gym after work or before work. We wake up, we stay in the house and we go to bed in the house. So it means that we stay up later at night. Our food habits are all knocked off whack. We don't have a set routine. So if you're looking to try and improve your food, what I want you to do is be able to journal, make sure that you've got timestamps in your day that you are absolutely going to eat at. They're non-negotiable. You do not change them. You make sure that you set yourself a time that you're going to go to bed at and that you're able to monitor basically how your mood is and how your performance is during training sessions in conjunctions with how much water intake that you're having, and basically analyze, like, am I making sure that I'm setting out time through my week? For me, I do it on a Sunday and a Wednesday of chopping up all my vegetables, popping them in the fridge, making sure that I've got my meals already wrote out so I know exactly what I'm having on each day. Don't be the guy who does chicken, broccoli, and rice. No one likes that guy. All right, make sure that your foods are sexy. They've got a lot of variety, lots of different colors. The thing that worked well for my gym is each meal or throughout the day, you should have 7 different colored vegetables in your meals. So 7 different colors. Make sure that you get 2 meals which have fish in them, 2 meals that have meat in them, and making sure that you're trying to get as much variety as possible. If you are vegans and vegetarians, believe me, that's a whole different other story. So we can go down that route, but that'll probably be another podcast. But awesome. I know it's a lot to take in, but hopefully that can give you some food for thought. when it's
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. And we've got some people asking about your podcast. So
oh yeah,
what's it called?
I think it's called I'm saying I think we do so much in this gym. It's called Project Australia. I'll try and pull it up on the YouTube channel. Hang on a minute.
Great. So what we'll do is when I send out the email afterwards, I'll make sure there's a link for it.
That's it. It's called the Australia Podcast.
Awesome. Brill. So. That's super cool. Thank you so much, Andrew. That was awesome. And I definitely learned tons there. And I know that there's lots of people that did as well. So we've got a couple of minutes left, and there are quite a few questions. There's a few questions that I'm going to send to our speakers privately, and hopefully, I know that they're great people, so they will answer it privately. But there's been one running question that seems to keep popping up a couple of times, and that's to do with your talk, Dan. And it's basically asking, when I'm running, I start panic breathing basically, and another person saying, is there a tip for breathing during workouts, especially movements like double unders?
Absolutely, and this will go for almost anything in training. Is when you first start nose breathing when you're training, you're not used to it, so you basically just need to slow down. When you nose breathe, here's a little nugget as well. When you're training, if you're trying to improve your aerobic capacity, you're not actually improving your aerobic capacity fully unless you're breathing through your nose. That's the biggest take home from this. So if you're cycling, running, aerobic kind of conversational pace, your nose breathing will dictate your speed. So if you find you're breathing through your mouth, just slow down. What you'll find is you might start your times, etc., might go down initially because your body's getting used to breathing a different way. But once you then improve your aerobic efficiency through getting the oxygen to your blood cells to around your body, your times will then go back up again. So you just have to be willing to go slower for a short time to then eventually go faster. And there was another quick one for double unders and another one for the sort of higher intensity. There's something called a gear system. This is really quick, but I won't go into that. Basically, all you need to think of, nose breathing for aerobic efforts, in through the nose, out through the mouth when it starts getting a bit too hard. And when you're going full beans, think Fran, 2 sub 5 minute workouts, that's when you mouth breathe. So think anaerobic efforts, mouth breathe, aerobic efforts, nose breathe, in the middle, nose mouth. And again, I'll put all this information in that Sarah can get to you, but that's the simplest way. But if you can learn to nose breathe, spend 30 days just breathing through your nose, then spend 30 days doing all of your training just breathing through your nose. And over time, over 2 or 3 months, you will see huge differences. And it's the simplest thing we can do because it takes no cost, no equipment. You can just do it anytime, anywhere. It just takes practice. That's all it is.
Brilliant. That was awesome. And bang on time, Dan, once again. Dude, yeah, awesome. You guys, all 3 of you, absolutely incredible. These guys have just woken up today and decided to bless us with their knowledge. So I just want to say a massive thank you to them. If any of you guys have got some spare time today, go ahead and explore their stuff. Give them a shout out online. Every little bit helps in this type of time of life that we're in. So yeah, let's just encourage them. Thank you so much for everything. If any of you sent in questions that you don't feel was answered, feel free to message me privately and I will get them to the coaches, and I will definitely get the coaches information and get that out into an email for you today. So yes, everybody saying massive thanks, and yeah, we totally appreciate this. So it was recorded. If you go and tell any other members about how awesome it was, you can also say to them that there will be a recording and a highlight reel too. But yeah, so I hope you all have an amazing Saturday, eating 7 different colors of vegetables whilst breathing through your nose and lecturing your family about how they need to start CrossFit. But yeah, so let me just unmute you all so you can say goodbye. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. This was absolutely awesome.
You're very welcome.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
You've got 30 days to the Open, guys, so get going.
Yeah, for sure. The Open, and yeah, and if any of you guys as gyms want to, you know, do something in with us in any way, anything virtual, we're totally up for that. Hey, my babe, you okay?
It totally reminded me of Tribal Clash with the budgie smugglers doing the jumps over the logs and stuff. So I am totally down for that.
Ace. Awesome. All right then. Brill, well, thank you so much. And yeah, chat to you guys soon.
Yeah, have a good weekend, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Take care, guys.
You say goodbye.
Bye.